Это же не огромно? Нет. Ну.
This is present-day Russia, and Putin committed a fatal error that cannot be forgiven. While the world was focused on peace talks, Putin wanted to plunge Kiev into darkness and bring Zelensky to the table as a surrendered leader. Putin was seeking roughly 20% of Ukraine, and in pursuit of that goal, Russia deployed more than 1,600 suicide drones. 153 UAVs and 51 missiles were used. The objective was to break the will to survive of millions of Ukrainians. This act of vandalism served one strategic purpose. Putin was seeking Ukraine's unconditional surrender. The Trump administration was pressuring Kiev by calling for Ukraine's immediate withdrawal from Donbass, declaring that no agreement could exist without concessions.
Unbelievable amount of money to the United States. They probably can't pay that much.
They waited for an answer from Ukraine. However, that answer was not what the Kremlin had anticipated. Ukraine's counterstrikes came immediately, as Putin attempted to compel Ukraine to surrender at the negotiating table without engaging in combat. The war arrived at Russia's doorstep. Zelensky played his hand, and in a single moment, all of Russia was thrown into chaos and upheaval. This was not a mere counterstrike. On the night of the 11th of December, Ukraine carried out one of the largest and most highly coordinated drone assaults in history, striking across all of northern Russia, including the capital, Moscow. Moscow airports, far from being the world's most luxurious terminals, were transformed into refugee camps. In this video, the situation can be observed more clearly. Passengers have occupied the seats in the airport waiting area, leaving no available seating for some. Some people are standing, others are sitting on the floor, and some have even spread their coats on the ground to use as makeshift beds. Passengers were instructed to stay away from the windows and assemble in the corridors, as the sound of explosions from outside shook the terminal buildings. The explosions heard in the Odintsovo and Ramenskoye districts were audible to passengers inside the aircraft waiting on the airport aprons. 7 major explosions were heard over Tula, followed by the airport being placed under lockdown. Each Ukrainian drone detonating in the sky, even when intercepted, immobilized Moscow through the panic and debris it caused. The strikes were so severe, so methodical, and so merciless that Moscow's link to the outside world was severed as if a switch had been turned off. Every airport in the capital was shut down. Hours of bombardment left Moscow's renowned sky shield full of gaps. Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, Vnukovo all went silent. Thousands of Russian citizens were left stranded inside terminals. More than 400 flights were canceled throughout Russia. In Moscow, over 170 flights were highlighted in red on the screens with the word "cancelled." All of these images come from Russia in the 21st century. The airspace was shut down for as long as 7 hours. This was not merely a delay, it was a paralysis of the nation. Artem Koronyako, spokesperson for the Russian Federal Air Transport Agency, stated that the restrictions were not confined to Moscow, but had extended to other key airports such as Grozny and Makhachkala. In this turmoil, not only ordinary citizens were affected, but even diplomatic procedures collapsed. Even the plane carrying Armenian Prime Minister Pashinyan circled like a phantom in the skies above Moscow, unable to locate a secure runway for landing. For the 20 million people asleep in Moscow that night, there was only a single truth. War was no longer something seen on television news. The war was the fireball visible through the bedroom window. Chaos had arrived in Russia, and this time there was nowhere to escape. The nation was ablaze everywhere, from north to south, east to west. With more than 300 drones and missiles, Moscow's long-boasted impregnable air defense shield was pierced in a single night. Every location within a 1,000-kilometer radius of Moscow was struck. Moscow and the areas around it were thrown entirely into chaos. Refineries, factories, and electrical substations were suddenly left without power as their cities were consumed by flames. This was a swarm-style operation that pushed far into Russian territory, slipped past air defense radar systems, and hit strategic targets with precise accuracy. The initial strike focused on the core of Russia's wartime economy, the PAO Akron chemical plant located in Veliky Novgorod. This site was not limited to producing fertilizer. It also provided essential chemical materials used in the production of explosives. 6 powerful explosions heard around midnight severely damaged the plant's ability to operate. At the same moment, hundreds of kilometers away, the Dorogobuzh nitrogen fertilizer facility and a thermal power plant in the Smolensk region were struck. These sites manufactured ammonium nitrate components for the Russian military industry. Ukraine was targeting the very foundation of Russia's artillery shell production capability. After that, the drones moved toward Moscow. By the time the Russian Federation declared a red alert for the Lipetsk region, the response came too late. The UAVs entered the capital at low altitude, taking advantage of gaps in radar coverage. This surge of disruption extended all the way to St. Petersburg, Putin's hometown. Russia's cultural capital was rocked by a large-scale market fire. Witnesses reported hearing explosions. The fire alarm failed to activate. The building was nearly entirely demolished. The Ministry of Emergency Situations dispatched a chemical and radiometric laboratory location signal this was fire. Also suspicions that sabotage may have been involved in the incident. Russia's investigative committee in St. Petersburg stated that a criminal case had been initiated on charges related to providing services that failed to meet security standards. Shutting off heating in a city with winter approaching is effectively equivalent to igniting the spark of social unrest. Because the consequences of this strike go far beyond the loss of electricity. In a modern Russian city, a power outage in the middle of winter signals the collapse of normal life and the onset of a zombie city scenario. Russia's central heating systems depend on electric pumps to move hot water through the network. When electricity is cut, those pumps shut down. With outdoor temperatures at -10 or -20 degrees, it takes only a few hours for the unmoving water inside the pipes to freeze. As water freezes, it expands and ruptures the iron pipes from within. At that point, the situation stops being a disruption and turns into a full-scale catastrophe. Because of ruptured pipes, even if electricity is restored, those buildings cannot be heated for months. This results in thousands of families being left without homes. In cities such as Voronezh, the majority of residents live in high-rise apartment blocks. When power is lost, elevators stop operating. Within a matter of days, a hygiene crisis emerges because water pumps cease functioning. And the threat of epidemics looms. Modern residential buildings quickly become unlivable concrete coffins. Without electricity, internet modems stop working. Base station generators run out of fuel within just a few hours. When communication towers go silent, people lose access to news, banking operations come to a halt, and ATMs no longer dispense cash. Russia's digital economy is abruptly reduced to physical cash and fear-driven rumors spreading by word of mouth. When the state's propaganda channels go dark, the Kremlin's grip on the population is also cast into darkness. The shutdown of the power plant endangers life support systems, intensive care units, and dialysis machines in hospitals. Even if backup generators activate, their fuel supplies are limited. This failure triggered a dangerous question to resonate in the minds of the Russian people. If the Kremlin, despite spending billions of dollars on defense, is compelled to shut down Moscow airport for 7 hours, then how secure is my home in Voronezh, Novgorod, or Tula? And the Russian people answered this question themselves through amateur footage. Russians filming the explosions in Novgorod revealed to the world that Putin's control, together with the shield in the sky, had also fractured the wall of illusion surrounding his people. The timing of these strikes is just as important as their force. So where was Vladimir Putin during all of this? Putin was seated in his gilded chair, absorbed in a meeting with his generals inside a conference room within the heavily protected Kremlin palace, cut off from the outside world. Putin's message was straightforward and disconnected from reality. The war goes on. Your negotiations will not deter me. My strategy is succeeding. But beyond those walls, the plan was failing. Outside, Russia was on fire. This strike also served as a direct message to Washington, particularly to Donald Trump. November 30th to December 1st marked a decisive turning point that shaped the diplomatic course of the war. Zelensky had reached out to Trump's team following meetings in Florida, yet Trump was exerting pressure using his trademark art of the deal approach. He accused Zelensky of failing to read the United States peace proposal and, during an interview, inserted a toxic remark. Russia has the advantage. Furthermore, according to information leaked to Politico, the United States was signaling that Ukraine should pull back from Donbass. That moment represented an existential crisis for Ukraine. In international perception, this United States-driven pressure, implying that Kiev's strength was fading, its ammunition supplies were being depleted, and that it would be forced to approach negotiations like a beggar was reinforcing Putin's position. Putin was intensifying his assaults, declaring, "Look, even the West says you are finished." Kiev leader Volodymyr Zelensky carried out his attacks on the night of December 11th with the aim of shattering this perception and reversing the balance. Through this action, Zelensky delivered a message to Trump, Europe, Putin, and above all, to his own people. "I hold cards in my hand. I will not approach the table from a position of weakness. I am capable of paralyzing Moscow whenever I choose. I can bring Russia's heart to a halt." This operation represents the military dimension of Zelensky's peace plan. Zelensky is not merely defending himself, he is extending a sword deep into Russian territory by deploying Long Neptune, Palianitsia, and Sapsan missiles. Zelensky confronted Trump with a clear message. "You can force me to peace, but you cannot force me to surrender, because I have the power to hurt Russia." This strategic checkmate, paired with the blind the bear strategy, places the Kremlin in a lethal dilemma. If Putin pulls air defense systems away from the front lines to shield Moscow, his troops in Donbass and Crimea will be left exposed to Ukrainian missile strikes. If he maintains protection of the front lines, then Moscow, St. Petersburg, and critical energy facilities will continue to burn, speeding up the breakdown of the home front. Ukraine also hit a massive tanker from Putin's shadow fleet in the Black Sea, striking directly at Russia's oil income. This represents a multi-layered logistical strangulation campaign designed to choke Russia not only on the battlefield, but also economically. Zelensky was correct. Daily life in Moscow came to a halt, and Putin's claim, "My plan is working," disappeared into the smoke rising from burning refineries. In the end, Russia committed an unforgivable error. Putin believed that bombing Kiev would frighten Ukraine, but instead, it carried the war back to his own doorstep, to his own capital. What unfolded in the skies above Moscow that night was more than a simple airstrike. On that night, Vladimir Putin's 25-year social contract with the Russian people fell apart. Putin's pledge was clear: "Obey me politically and I will provide you with stability and security." However, the people sprawled on the floors of Moscow airports, the families enduring the cold in Voronezh, and the workers witnessing their factories erupt in Novgorod now understand that this is Ukraine's answer, and that response came without delay or hesitation. It is no longer limited to a 1,000-kilometer radius, as Russia's long-standing myth of invincibility has also become a direct target for Ukraine. The message delivered was unmistakable. There's no place that remains safe. Vladimir Putin's war is no longer a far-off front line marked only on maps. The war has reached your home. And when the lights go out, the Kremlin's falsehoods will no longer be enough to keep you warm. So, what are your thoughts on this? Please share your opinions in the comments section. To keep up with our latest videos, please subscribe to our channel and remember to enable notifications. Thank you for choosing us.